Yes, you are now listening to the sound. Sports reports as ordered. And all through the town of Arlington, everything was quiet. Not even a mouse. Tonight, we're going to talk to you about the quiet Dallas Cowboys, about how and why the NFL still has such a hold on us. And we got a little bit of NBA too. And make sure you remember at some point next week, it's time for some baseball preview. But for the time being, we gonna get this thing started with Get Off My Chest after I introduce the even kill, Virginia born, Bruiser Bruiser's own stand-up T-neck Bill, Trenton, Patterson, you know what I'm saying, representing the turnpike and all the headaches that come with that. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
He is Mr. Logical. And then, of course, he is Mr. Logical. But you got to bring logic with me, too. Because you got to be loyal to your logic. Because a lot of y'all's logic ain't loyal to you. So here I go, the unorthodox. Go left so much you thought I was softball. Down in the Alamo, via Charm City, I am 2-5. How you doing, Grandma? Where we going to for breakfast? So, as I mentioned before, we get this thing started off with Get It Off My Chest. And Mr. Logic, please step to the microphone.
Yo, I like what you said there. I'm always gonna mess up paraphrase, but like your logic isn't right. It won't make sense when you try to like have these conversations because people are gonna be able to call you on it. So I'm real big on coaches. I think coaches' responsibilities is huge. I think understanding what you say as a coach, your temperament, how you interact with players, young boys, young girls, older, boys and girls, young men, to professionals. I think everything you say as a coach matters. I'm real big on Sean Payton being awful as a coach, just the way he treated Russell Wilson as a veteran. Scott, you got a guy in the league 10, 11, 12 years. You got to talk to him differently. But if you're a college coach and you're getting players in that are getting a lot of influence, getting a lot of information from all over the place, you need to be that stable, professional person they can go to because they're going to get the family and everything else. They're going to get, information that they might make decisions based off of. So I saw a press conference earlier. Kirby Smart said that he doesn't like when guys sign or commit before their senior year and then sit out their senior year of football. It's like, well, what do you expect this guy to do? Pardon me. What do you expect him to do if he goes out there, he's playing a collision sport, and he's committed to Georgia, a school that everyone wants to go to? If you can get recruited to go to one of these top Division I schools, Georgia being that school for football or any sport, track, football, badminton, swimming, whatever it is, one of these top collegiate programs, and someone's going to tell you, like, listen, man, don't get hurt because ESPN has the top 300, Rivals has the top 300, Scout.com has the top 300, your state rankings have a top 300, the nation has Gatorade has a top 300. So if you're a top 300 linebacker, you're committed to Georgia, and you get hurt, there's another one of you that's 6'2", 235 that runs a 4.4 40 that can fit in Kirby Smart's program. So if you get injured in your senior year, there's no loyalty obligation to them as a school to make sure you make it. So if you're gonna be a coach, I need you to be responsible, understand your words. Like you're gonna put a kid in a position where he thinks that he has to play his senior year in order to impress you and keep his scholarship, and then gets injured and loses it. Or now you're on record basically saying like, "Oh, I want you to play your senior year." So now you get a guy who's coming out starting this August. He plays his senior year and gets injured. I want you standing at that podium saying, "Hey, we had a guy that committed as a junior. He played his senior year. He got hurt. We're still bringing him in. He's going to rehab for a year. He's going to redshirt, and then he'll be ready to work into the fold starting 2026."
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to go to the podium and say, "I don't want a guy that's not going to play his senior year," then I want you to go up there when somebody does get hurt or their stats drop or their team doesn't win a state championship. I don't want you pulling a scholarship because the performance from the junior year to the senior year fell off because whatever factors that may be. So that's all me. Like, listen, you can be a coach. You got the responsibility. You'll get up there behind that mic. You can get this 12, 13, $14 million a year from the school. Honor the players and be a leader to the players.
And that's why I keep telling people I don't even think at this point it's about the money. The coaches just missed the control that they had.
Completely missed the control.
They miss it, from the standpoint of before these players started getting NIL, getting paid, all this kind of stuff. We talked about how the scholarships have to be renewed year to year. So, your coach could just walk up and be like, "Sorry, son, you got to make room. We got to make room for our new 5-level crop or 5-star crop that's coming in. I'm sorry." And then at one point, and depending on when you leave, they're like, "Oh, no, you can't go to another SEC school though."
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, not only am I pulling your scholarship, but I'm gonna tell you where you can and cannot go.
And it's at the end of the recruiting cycle for the other schools, so there's no spot for you there. So now
Right.
you're going to JUCO route.
Yeah, or you're going to try to walk on. And as I was saying earlier, Baker Mayfield's the only person that I could think of that was a walk-on and say ended up being a number 1 draft pick. Like, how many walk-ons? I have to go back and do some research. How many walk-ons eventually went in the first round of the NFL draft?
Walk-on and transferred.
Right. To whereas the money is the important thing that people want to talk about. And this is America, the land of capitalism, the land of opportunity. People come here from all over the world because of our principles, but yet we trying to hinder how a kid can set up their future.
Correct.
Where's the opportunity? Where's the opportunity in that?
All it is, I want to say all, but you can tell majority of his control. Nick Saban said as much when he's talking about worry about the kids getting money. Listen, these guys were getting money before. We need to stop fronting. What's my catchphrase? Don't piss my pocket and tell me it's raining. It's very hard. You can't convince me to move from Jersey to Alabama for a good paying job, let alone you getting kids from California that come live in
Hawaii,
Tuscaloosa, Hawaii every year. You're getting the top quarterback out of Utah, like to sit the bench in Alabama when he can be the man in Utah. Utah sports heroes are heroes. John Stockton, Carl Malone, Stockton Malone, Toyota, they got car dealership statues everywhere. If you are a top 5-star quarterback out of the state of Utah, going to BYU or Utah, you're the man in these shoes. Your parents don't have to pay
for life.
Your parents don't have to pay for stuff if you're good at Utah. But yet you can get these guys that come out of Alabama, like, cut it out. So these guys are getting paid. It's the control. And I understand if it's out of control. If you have guys who are freshmen, walk on 5'6", 165, and you talk about, listen, coach, if you want me to stay, I'm gonna need 25,000. It's like, I didn't know he was on the team. I can understand that point.
Well, that's just rich that a dude making like $11-12 million is concerned about somebody maybe making $200,000.
Maybe if that, and and Michael Wilbon says something on PTI. He was talking about a guy can like transfer out if he just they don't want to compete. It's not about competing. It's about I don't have this time to waste.
Well,
If you're
think about
19 and
this.
you're in college, how many years can you sit behind? Like if you because they were talking about are the blue blood organizations, the blue chip organizations dying, like the in college basketball. I was like, no, they're just the talent's being spread, and I think people are just kind of looking at it from the standpoint where these top schools used to be able to stack talent. I want Tulane to get top players. So when we get a game like Tulane versus Houston, it's a good game. When we get Alabama versus Iowa State, it's a good game because everybody in the Midwest, all the 5-star guys didn't go to Penn State, Michigan,
Well,
or Ohio
think about it
Ohio
like
State.
this. Think about it like this. You got a guy like Malik Murphy, was down here at the University of Texas up in Austin. He was in line to be the starting quarterback. And then a guy by the name of Quinn Ewers decided that he was going to come back home. So Quinn Ewers comes in, beats him fair and square for the job. Okay, you take that, right? So then you say, all right, Quinn Ewers had a great year. He's going to go to the – nope, Quinn came back. You know what I'm saying? So then you make the playoff. You're like, okay, you don't wish injury on anybody. But if Quinn Ewers goes down right now, I could have my Tua moment. Come in the playoff, be the hero, get put on everybody's shoulders, run off the field, and I'm a legend.
But you got Arch Manning right there in
Or
front of
you
you.
got Arch Manning right there. And unless you look generational and Arch Manning looks like, why is he touching the football? It's his job once that time comes for all intents.
You have to look like a 4-year NFL vet at college practice to beat Arch Manning out for that spot. So same thing with Joe Milton.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be the next guy up in Michigan. And then JJ McCarthy comes. So he's like, well, I gotta go. Because there's only so many times like you can be considering like people are treated like the NFL is one thing. If I'm getting paid to be a backup, I'm getting paid, awaiting my opportunity. In college, you're auditioning for the next job. It's like imagine you need a certain degree to apply for a human resources job, but you can't take your final class because they keep bringing in another student that takes your spot. So now you just waiting. Like I can't even put together a good resume for this other employer to hire me because every time I need to go take this last class or my final year to get this degree, you guys won't let me because you bring somebody else into my spot. That's what's happening. And it doesn't happen for everyone. And it's hundreds of schools and thousands of players. Everybody's not going to the NFL.
Yeah, like Kyle McCord, for example, started at Ohio State this year, freshman. He didn't have the best year by Ohio State standards, obviously, but I mean, come on, he's a freshman, right? And he ends up now at Syracuse. So it's not like he went from Ohio State to Penn State, or he went from Ohio State to Notre Dame, or he went from Ohio State to USC. He went to Syracuse. So he's still, even though he left, you could argue that he's still sacrificing.
Yeah, and he took an opportunity, which everybody look how many guys went from ESPN to Fox, ESPN to CBS, ESPN to their own podcast.
And we didn't bat an eye.
You use what you have in this world. Like I was talking about before, like if you're a physics major and you want to tutor people for $50 an hour, you could have done that forever. But if you're a football player and you want to be a personal trainer to help someone get the freshman 15 off after they came back from Christmas break and they pay you $50 an hour, it was an NCAA violation.
Right.
So I think the fact that people only look at it, I mean, granted, we talk about context, we talk about tunnel vision, all these conversations, a lot of these conversations that you have to be able to look at it from each point of view and come up with your logic. Because a lot of times, if you come at it from one way, it's like, so what happens when the coach from Washington takes the Alabama job? No one's talked about that since it's happened. We've been talking more about Nick Saban and his comments about how he felt about the players versus the fact that a coach recruited players to Washington and left when the money was better for him to come to Alabama. So if I lose that game to Michigan because the quarterback can't find me wide open, I'm a wide receiver, and Ohio State comes calling and they say, hey, we got another 5-star quarterback coming in. You want to come up here and play with us? Absolutely. They're going to pay me 80 grand to come up. I'm going to do it the same way y'all paid the money for old boy to come from Washington to Tuscaloosa. I'm going from Tuscaloosa up to Columbus.
There you go. So get it off my chest. I know y'all been looking at the calendars, or at least you should have been, because today is Thursday. What that means is in 3 days, everybody's going to be going bracket crazy. The madness is here. So I just want to say, full disclaimer, this is not what I usually do, but I have learned throughout life there are exceptions to rules. There are waivers. There are ways to get around, and there are loopholes in every contract. What I have been thinking about lately is a team that is 28-6, number 29 in the net. Yes, they haven't beat anybody, but they won their conference in the regular season. They have an all-time great nickname for their best player, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Classic.
Indiana State hasn't been a factor since Larry Bird was on the scene. 1979 was the year when they lost to Magic Johnson and Michigan State in the national title game before Bird versus Magic was born in the NBA. Those two schools hadn't even played again until this year. So here we are on the brink of March Madness, coming off of a 4-point loss to Drake. I saw that Indiana State is listed as last 4 in. Okay. This is my problem.
Yeah.
My problem is you got schools like Pitt. And before it was Pitt, it was Wake Forest. The only difference was Pitt beat Wake Forest today. So Wake Forest was 8-12 in the ACC. And the talk on the street was if they made it to the ACC semifinals, they would be an NCAA tournament team. Even though they went 8-12 over the course of 20 games, talk about your regular season not mattering. Indiana State won their conference and went to their conference tournament title game when we all know that the conference tournament is only there for money. So as I sit here and I look at this, I'm looking at teams like Michigan State, who are barely 4 or 5 games over 500. Villanova's even worse. So if Villanova beats Marquette without Marquette's best player, they're suddenly going to be a lock. It doesn't make sense to me because these teams get opportunities all year long to do the right thing. So I'm looking at this right now. Villanova finished 6th in the Big East. They're 18-14 overall. But if they win against Marquette without their best player, they're going to be a lock, and Indiana State is going to be sitting at home sweating on Selection Sunday.
So 19-14 because you're a blue blood organization. You're
versus Indiana State being 28-6. Now, granted, Indiana State doesn't have the schedule that you would want them to have. They lost to Alabama by 22. They lost to Michigan State. But the one metric that tells us how good a college basketball team is allegedly the net, they're number 29, when the highest team that has ever been left out was ranked number 32. So what are we doing here? March Madness, if nothing else, is supposed to be entertaining. So how can you have March Madness without the cream?
Like I said, we talked about in our pre-meeting, I would rather get a team in that has a player that people want to see. A lot of names have been made in terms. I mentioned these names before. You got Wally Zerbiak, Steph Curry. A lot of schools will go with the South Dakota State Jackrabbits.
I mean, hell, last year FAU made the Final Four in San Diego
FAU
State.
made the Final Four. I remember a couple of years I picked Vermont Gonzaga back in 1999, my senior in high school. Saved the best for last, class 99,
Butler.
stand up. Butler made their run. Like I said, Gonzaga. I had my math teacher kept asking me. He was like, "Why do you keep picking them?" I'm like, "Yo, I saw their tournament because this is before Gonzaga. This is before, like right now, we see everything with sports. Back in the day, you didn't get to see Davidson on TV. You didn't see Gonzaga on TV until it was their tournament. And even then, you might only saw the final because ESPN only had, it was like ESPN 1 and 2, maybe ESPN News. It's probably like late 90s, but I might even.
And there was no ESPNU at the time.
There was no ESPNU. There was no ESPN
No 360.
No 360, no
No
phones.
Deportes.
All of that. So like you would get the WAC championship. You would get the Sun Belt championship game. You would get the AAC championship game. So I saw Gonzaga in that, and they had a guy named, I think his name was Matt Santangelo. I was like, he just looked unguardable. And then slowly after that, Gonzaga became a household name. But that's what the tournament is about. And I think now it's like everything, you want all the entertainment and everything about it. If a team loses 14 or 15 games, granted they can come from a big conference, they had opportunities to win big. They had opportunities to recruit better. They have better facilities, they have more money, they have all these things. Let the small school in.
Or let me check myself real quick too. I got my numbers mixed up because I'm watching Boston College in Virginia right now. Boston College is 8-12. Wake Forest was 11-9 in the ACC. But the point remains is that if Boston College wins tonight, they're off to the ACC semis to play against NC State, who just upset Duke. They win that game, go to the ACC tournament final. And if they win that game, they get the automatic bid. And somebody like Indiana State, who's played well all season, gets knocked out away for a team that played well over 5 days. So you talk about college football, but the regular season isn't going to matter. Yeah, we see how much you care about that. But yeah, so then all was quiet. The Dallas Cowboys were able to steal Eddie Kendricks away from San Francisco somehow, but they haven't done much else. What is going on down in Jerry World, Mr. Logical?
I think the only thing they really needed to address probably was the running back position. I don't know why a billionaire would be that concerned with giving a guy $18 million.
Derrick Henry you're talking about?
Derrick Henry.
Didn't even call him.
Reports that I saw was that the price was too steep.
I did see that, but Derrick Henry came out today and talked to someone and said Dallas never even called his reps.
Maybe they're just basing off the number that he ended up getting. Either way, that should have been the only phone call they made. Granted, you're gonna make the little moves here. You're gonna you're gonna back up safety,
get a
linebacker. Yeah. You're gonna make those fill out the roster moves for sure.
Well, I mean, their Pro Bowl center came across the division. Their running back, the starting running back they did have left.
Went home to Tennessee.
Dante Fowler's gone. Dorrance Armstrong's gone. Both of them.
I think you can fill that out with like players that are just on your radar. Like every player, you're not going to get a bunch of Micah Parsons and
Stephon Gilmore's a free agent.
Yeah, you just might have to just hope Trayvon Diggs comes back healthy, ready to go, started training camp. But I think your defense is set. You brought in Mike Zimmer. You're going to get a couple pieces here and there. But the big piece that they could have had with Derrick Henry, especially considering that everyone does run it back by committee. It's like, okay, I'll give you 18 million. I'll get another guy and I pay him 1.2 million for the next couple of years. So I'm in my running back position for 22 to 25 million dollars. Because you'll probably have another undrafted guy that you get 4 or 5 good games out of, or you get a good 50 to 60 carries throughout the season. Maybe they get
Second
a
leading
touchdown or
rusher in the
two.
league.
So that could have been handled better, considering that we saw that was a need publicly. Everyone saw that was a need. Everyone felt like he would fit perfectly, and not to make that move. A lot of the other moves, as far as like them just kind of being quiet, it's just it's the Dallas Cowboy Jerry Jones circus of we're going all in. That was not important. Post losing that playoff game, I know everybody's emotional, but it feels as if there's not anyone in the building that's telling the other people in the building, like, listen, you know what? Maybe we should just shut up. Maybe we shouldn't be on every radio show. Maybe we shouldn't make these proclamations, these declarations every single time there's a microphone in our face. Sometimes you can just talk. You can talk about how proud you are of the team. You can talk about, hey, I really like the culture we're building here. Yeah, we came up short, but I really like what we have going here. Obviously, you want more success. If you look at organizations like the Chiefs and the Ravens, and like, just have a real conversation about football versus a conversation about delusions of grandeur, because that's the part that's catching them off guard. Like, we talked about this. Shout out to the Hot Box. Let's talk about is Dallas have a winning culture. I think they do. The problem is they equate their winning and they inflate their expectations to the point where they make these proclamations about their expectations. Everyone comes into the season. If you think you have a good enough team to win 10, 11, 12 games, then you feel like, you know what?
Also, Jesse Jackson right there. The proclamation of the estimation of the emancipation.
Listen, I'm a wordy guy. I can't help it. But you feel like okay, Kansas City, Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore next year, Cincinnati, the 49ers, the Chargers probably feel like they could turn it around. Houston probably feels like, yeah, we can get another
Eagles.
10 or 11. Eagles probably, like, so 8 to 12 teams come into the season think like, yo, I think we are in position to get double-digit wins, win our division, and be
The
contenders.
Falcons.
People feel that way, but you gotta build that momentum. You gotta build the
Rondale.
belief.
Hey, Rondale Moore for like a box of Church's chicken.
Once again, like, a lot of these pieces are moving, and I think the Dallas, the expectations that they put out publicly, everyone, like, every real team. I mean, maybe the Jets don't, because they know they're kind of perpetually in this rebuild. New England's probably thinking like, okay, we're definitely in a rebuild, but we saw what Houston just did. If we can catch, lightning in the bottle. But for the most part, like I said, it's like 8 to 12 teams that think like we got a real shot. Other team like, yeah, we got an opportunity to build something here. Maybe we could do what Houston does. So it's like there's a lot of these different economies that these teams have. Dallas just comes out, and this the owner. The owner says it. One of the players that's essentially quote unquote unproven, he'll come out and say something. It just, and then the moves don't
I can
match.
always talk.
The moves don't match the expectations, and I think that's the biggest problem. I still think they're a talented team. I think they could probably still win NFC East, even though it hasn't happened. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, as far as back to back
hadn't happened in like a couple of decades, but they won 2 out of the last 3 years. I think they can be right there in the running. It's just they have to manage their personalities as far as how they express their expectations.
Well, I think the problem is that it was one thing when San Francisco or Philly was in your way. Now you have San Francisco and Philly and Detroit. Jordan Love came in your house and put the molly wop on you. Atlanta, even though they haven't played a game yet, Atlanta's getting better as far as personnel. at least offensively. Tampa re-upped with Mike Evans when we didn't think they would, and they're bringing Baker Mayfield back, and we've seen that they've built some chemistry over the course of this season.
That's 12. That's 12 to 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, you got. We'll see what Washington does at quarterback, but Washington's looking competent in the front office for like, for the time being. We'll see how it ends up. But for right now, they're looking better than they have.
They're making solid rebuild moves, and it feels like a lot of teams are in position either through the moves that they made or their draft position to kind of put a good product on the field.
Hell, even Chicago went and got Keenan Allen and DeAndre Swift.
Yeah. Keenan Allen happened like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah. And so that's where, for me,
for a fourth rounder, by the way,
when I look at the Cowboys, they have top end talent in some positions. They have Dak Prescott. They have Micah Parsons. They have CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks is a walking 1,000-yard receiver.
DeMarcus Lawrence.
But does Dallas have the required depth that they need? And the answer to that question could be, like you said, there's going to be players out there that fill out the roster. But that's kind of the problem, is that you're waiting until everyone else around you gets better and you're taking what's left. And then when it doesn't work, you're going to say, why can't we get over the hump? And it's like Philly just alone went and got, Bryce Huff. They went and got Saquon Barkley. Right. You could have got Saquon Barkley.
I was thinking that. I was like, I've been posting in the groups all week. If you GMs keep jerking these guys around with these contracts simply because you have the leverage in the contract, when the chicken comes to roost and you jerk them around again, they're going in division.
And oh, by the way,
and you got to see them twice a year for the next 2 or 3 years, whatever length this contract is. But they're going to get that petty deal. And Philly probably could have got Saquon for $32 million, but they're like, you know what? Let's make it 37, make it sweeter. So not only are we gonna pay you more than your other team, now you got to see him twice.
And oh, by the way, as long as these allegations don't turn Dak the wrong way, he won his $60 million.
And from what I've been hearing about the cap, like I said, not a capologist, they could extend Dak right now and his cap hit for this year would come down. But if they don't extend him, the cap hit sits at like $59 million or something crazy like that.
But if I'm Dak, I also remember how contentious it was last time it was time for me to get paid.
Yeah, but the thing is now they don't have any leverage. They can't franchise him. He has no trade clause. They simply have to cut him or pay him.
So basically, Jerry Jones is like, Dak, look, take this right now, this extension. We're going to go get you some pieces, XYZ, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We're going to fix the defense. And Dak is going to go, fuck you, pay me. Okay, I reloaded. That's basically what's going to happen. And Dallas is going to be bent over
pretty much
when they could have, because they're going to have to pay him either way. They're not starting Trey Lance.
Not at all.
They're not drafting J.J. McCarthy. So you're going to have to pay him. And you still got to find a way to maneuver the cap around to get those prerequisite parts that you're talking about to compete. So that's where, like, for me, it's not even about making a splash. It's not about, hey, let's go out here and get Derrick Henry, even though they should have. It's not even about that. It's about, there's been 3 days that have passed by now, and all you've done is steal an older dude from San Francisco. So you feel good about yourself.
And that's strictly because the defensive coordinator had nothing to do with like the front office. He just
right. Right.
Mike
He's going
Zimmer
to
was
go
like,
back to
"Yo,
Zimmer. Yeah. So now you're at the point of Philly's getting better around you. You're still not worried about the Giants just yet. But maybe Washington can beat you once. And that could be the difference between you hosting a playoff game or not. You
but
know,
Washington's going to be in a position where because they're drafting second,
mm-hmm,
they're going to get their quarterback.
mm-hmm.
One of these top prospects slips to like 17, 18, 20. Now they take pick number 34.
Now they have 7 picks in the top 100 after the Sam Howell trade.
Now they flip it and get 34 and they get back into the first round. And now they've added pieces and they've done things because they have leverage where sometimes I get like sometimes sitting standing pat is a good idea. And other times it's like you might have to be aggressive. You might have to match the energy of of your competitors to ensure that you stay ahead of the curve.
Well, Washington has 2 things that a young quarterback requires to be successful. They have the receiver that catches everything, and they have the red zone machine at running back with the Austin Eckler pickup. So nobody's saying that Washington's going to go 10-7. We're not saying Washington's going to go 11-6. But what I am saying is that they're good enough to catch you napping, which will put you on the road.
They're feeling their optimism, like
right.
That momentum train. They're putting coals in it.
Right.
Dallas, you had 3 seasons of 12 wins. People should be fighting to come to Dallas. You should be taking meetings to get the best players to come to Dallas because you have 36 wins over the last 3 years. Amidst all the drama that's encapsulated with the Dallas Cowboys, and you still manage to win. This is where like a conversation with Los Angeles about Khalil Mack. I know he's getting a little long in the tooth, but so is your quarterback. And you're going to be in a position where you're going to have to go cheap in a couple of years anyway. You might as well go real all in with this money and then spread it out.
And that's the
in a couple
overall
of years, you're going to have to go cheap.
That's the overall problem. You couldn't stop Jordan Love from coming into your place where you were undefeated at home and putting his feet up on the couch, taking over your shit. You know what I'm saying?
Sofas, man.
You know what I'm saying? Drinking sodas and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like while he's sitting up here coming into your house and doing this, you couldn't stop him. Dak threw some picks, including like it was just awful. So you can't stand pat because you thought, we won the division. We won 12 games again. Tony Pollard is here. Let's go get to the NFC Championship game. And you couldn't get out the first round.
2 days ago, the Rams did it. We seen the Rams do it. They went all in. Von Miller. They paid Aaron Donald. They begged him to come back from retirement.
Jalen Ramsey, Odell Beckham.
They traded for Jalen Ramsey. They signed Odell Beckham, and they won a Super Bowl. Yes, it was a 1-possession game, but they really went all in. But then it fell off a little bit. Stafford got hurt. You had a bad year. Come back, you get Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp misses a few games. The guy gets comfortable, and you come back, and the Rams are in the playoffs again. So, just Dallas, I think they're afraid of not looking like the prize fighter headed into the ring. But at some point, you got to throw that overhand. You can't just keep jabbing and looking good. Like Anthony Joshua, we use the boxer reference. Anthony Joshua looks like a guy who should never lose a hand-to-hand combat ordeal ever. Nothing about him says this guy loses fights. 6'5", 200-something pounds, no body fat, just shoulders, biceps, and big hands. You should never lose a fight, but you're in there passive. And what he did with Nagano, I'm throwing this overhand right. I'm throwing this straight. I'm throwing this right hand because if it connects, he's out.
And that analogy works because that's what Dallas did. They feasted on a whole lot of Washington, a whole lot of Giants. You know what I mean? Lost to Miami, got smashed by Buffalo. Like, this is what they do, so you have to do something that the way that the season ended, I think you have to send a message that it was unacceptable. Not saying, like I said, not saying that you got to go out here and get every star to make a splash or anything like that. But now, if you don't feel you have a winning culture, now's the time to go get like a Bobby Wagner, like Washington did. It doesn't have to be something crazy or just this is
All
going
you
to be what we
need
talk
is
about for 6 days.
1 year to change your fortunes.
That's all you need.
Cincinnati lost that Super Bowl to the Rams, but every year since, to include this next coming year, they're going to be in a position or preseason, probably top 6 or 7.
Hell, they were even going to cut Joe Mixon until the Texans came through.
Yeah, so it's like you got to make these moves, but you just need that one good year.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit had one good year. They kept Green Bay out of the playoffs. They end up getting Aaron Rodgers shipped out of the division. Following year, they win the division, and now they're in an NFC Championship game. A decision here, decision there, kick here, kick there. They're in the Super Bowl. But you gotta build. You gotta be willing to potentially go 9-8. You gotta be willing to be right up against the cap. He can't treat every aspect of the team as a reflection of him as an owner personally.
And Eli Manning has showed us that you can go from mid to 60 real quick, once the playoffs start.
Once the playoffs start, you just got to do it. Like Jerry Jones, I think he's too concerned with winning. Like you're concerned with winning negotiations with your own players. Like you're negotiating with some other company to take them over. And he feels like, got it. I got me another one. Well, yeah, you just lowballed a player. Now he's going to want to leave. Or another free agent doesn't want to go there because they saw how you treated Dak. People saw how you treated Dak with those negotiations. The same thing happened with the Ravens. That was a conversation we had last year. It was like, you can't keep dangling this guy around because it's going to adversely affect other people. Because it's like, if you do this to the franchise quarterback, what are you going to do to me? So, you know what? Patrick Queen, I'm going to Pittsburgh. Give me this $51 million. I'm not even going to deal with y'all. I'm not going to get jerked around. I'm not going to get franchise tag. I'm not going to be, put out in public because that's what Jerry does. It's like you don't have to win the non-football stuff for your team to be successful. And I think that gets in the way more than anything else.
But here we are, right? Brackets on Sunday. I'm watching the ACC tournament right now. You're watching the NBA right now. And we're talking about a league that doesn't even have an active game going on right now.
And a team that everybody talks about, and it's not even, it doesn't even fit the concept of our show. Because we talked about how we didn't like how every show talked about the Cowboys all the time. But right now it fits. It shows how football is king. So anyone who keeps screaming, "Oh, the NFL is rigged," they're doing this, I'm like, for what? What? We're not even watching games right now, my man. We were Googling Keenan Allen 4th round trades 45 minutes ago. It is 11:15. I got to go to work in the morning, but yet we are up talking about football. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's like, so when people say it's rigged, it's like rigged. We're locked in. I'm not locked in because of the results of a game here, or a game there, or a flag here, a flag there. I'm locked in because holistically, it's a very entertaining league. It's short. You could be in and out and hot and done very quickly. So, that's the part that
it's the one league. It's the one professional league that has it right. The NBA with the 82 games, baseball 162, hockey's 82. It's the one league that, and then it's spread out where the games are a week apart. Whereas obviously, if you didn't catch tonight's Boston Celtic game, they probably play tomorrow or the day after. You didn't catch the Lakers, they'll be on TV tomorrow because somebody's going to be talking about them. Whereas in the NFL, they build that anticipation. Like, I love you, but I'm gonna just take a break and go outside for a second, for a few days or whatever. And then I'm gonna come back. Yeah, dear summer. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna come back in here and we're gonna pick up right where we left off. And it's
And like,
all
wait. Get Amazon. You can see me on Thursday.
yeah. We
So
had
now
that
everybody's
time
like, yo,
apart.
I'm getting Amazon. So like now we back on Thursday.
Yeah, we had that time apart. People were out here, hashtag boycott Peacock because people were out here paying for Peacock just to watch the Kansas City Chiefs play in weather that's getting people amputated right now.
Literally, people losing their limbs
And
watching a football game.
then you got Amazon just paid $125 million to exclusively play a playoff game next season. So, the NFL just does everything right. And the crazy part about it is it's domestic, because the NBA has the global thing going on, the outreach. Yao Ming came through and brought China into the fold. We have Luka, Jokic, Giannis,
Giannis.
Embiid, so on and so forth. Even SGA is Canadian.
Yeah.
You got these, so you got the foreign concepts going on, but the NFL is still at the top of the mountain, because they don't overdo it. They provide a product and we go to it. Whereas the NBA is always trying to persuade us that we should check out their product while
Why
not.
don't you like me? Why don't you like me?
Yeah, while not
Like,
putting. Can't y'all see that he's the rap version of TD Jakes? You know what I'm saying? That's what they doing up in here.
yo, when the NFL was playing games on Christmas Day, I know Adam Silver and the NBA execs were like, "You mother," because I didn't watch a single basketball game. I watched football all day. It was 5. I think it was like 4 or 5 NBA
Well,
games on there.
remotes. I know we've moved in technology and everything, but remotes still have a last channel button. You know what I mean? Or like, you got a laptop, so like people like me had
You
the
could
NBA on the laptop and the
you could have put it
NFL.
all up, man. I was wrapping gifts on Christmas Eve. I was drinking all day Christmas, so I couldn't focus on a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I
Not
was
that
like,
we
boom.
condone, alcohol.
Listen, I'm
Don't try this
grown.
at home,
I'm
kid.
grown. I'm grown. I do what I listen. You see that? You see that? I'm grown. I do what I want. But yeah, so I think that's the key. And on top of that, the NFL, yes, the NBA does have you lose a player, your season could be over. But you can lose a player in the NBA. You could lose a guy for a month. Like Embiid is probably going to be out at this point. I think we're probably pushing 4 weeks if we're about right.
And now
At
they're
least.
relegated to the play-in.
So now they're in the play-in. If Joe Burrow missed how many games last year? Jake Brown had 4 to
At least
5.
it was probably closer to 6, but yeah, something like that.
Soon as his hand got hurt, it was like, okay, their Super Bowl chances are a wrap. So all of these off-season moves, who's going to drive Caleb Williams? Who's going to jump to get J.J. McCarthy? Is he going to go to New England? All right, is Atlanta going to go greatest show on turf and get Ruma Dunze at 8? Where is the first defense player going to come off? Is this team going to do this? Is Kansas City going to draft that kid that ran a 4.21 and treat him like the new Tyreek? All of these things all like make sense because every single person in an NFL team, other than having 2 quarterbacks, makes sense.
Because in the NFL, you have hope. Like looking at the NBA
everywhere
right now, just in this moment in time that we're having this conversation, we got, at least as far as 2-5 goes, we got Denver, we got Boston.
I agree with that.
I would like to trust Milwaukee, but they got Glenn as their coach, so I don't.
I'll throw that in there. But talent-wise,
talent-wise, they're right there. I want to see Minnesota and OKC, but I don't think either one of them are like ready yet.
But they are at the top.
They are at the top, but Memphis was last year too. Then you got KD, of course. You got the Clippers that we can watch, but nobody's buying the hype. Whereas like literally as we sit here right now in the NFL, the Jets are like, we're getting Aaron Rodgers back. Like as you go around the league,
the Falcons got Kirk Cousins and maybe you add a wide receiver that they're scoring 30 points a game and they're winning games 30-27.
Tennessee is saying we got Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley. We saw what CJ Stroud did last year. Why not?
We got a young, big arm quarterback. Every team within reason, like I said, 8 to 12 teams can pretty much lock themselves into realistically believing that they can win 10, 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
off the rip.
Like even
And
in
then
baseball, like there's probably a limited 4 to 5.
in
4 to 5.
baseball season is going to start probably the end of this month. Probably
Yeah, it
say like
starts on the 28th.
28th.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be teams that are completely out of it July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
They have no shot because
But
there's
in
too many
baseball,
games.
at least when you're out of it, you go raid somebody's farm system.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like you can come into the season with optimism in the baseball, and then by July 1st you're out. NFL, as long as your team is healthy, you got a shot. Because if you think
Yeah.
about San Francisco, they were 5-0. They lost 3 games in a row, 5-3. So now their next game, if you don't win that game, you're 5-4. You're teetering. But even after a 3-game losing streak, they won another 5-game win streak. So it's like that doesn't really happen in baseball. In basketball, the same way. You pretty much just you're Detroit. You lose 8 in a row, then it's 9, then it's 14. You're Washington. You lose 5 out of 6 games. You win a
First
couple,
team eliminated from the playoffs, baby.
and then now you're 30, 40 games under 500, and you've only played 47 games. It's you're just out of it so early in the season. But in the NFL, Chicago, people probably thought Chicago was going to end up with the number 1 pick from Carolina, but you know what it looks. You know what Carolina was going to look like. They were going to look like the team that's going to be the worst team in the league because we saw it from the gate. Like, okay, you don't have the pieces you need.
Mm-hmm.
Other teams got the
And your
pieces.
owner's an imbecile.
Owner has no idea what he's doing. The Broncos, when they gave up 70 to Miami, people thought the season was over. But then they come back, granted 6 or 7 weeks later, and they beat Kansas City by a couple of possessions. So it's just like
Out of the 9 points.
held 9 points. It probably, games like that save people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You get a bad loss like Frank Wright did, he get fired in the middle of the season. So it's just, I think that's the hook with the NFL, and we like to see where these players go. We watch them through college football. We watch Jaden Daniels at Arizona State. You watch Bo Nix at Auburn. You watch Sam Hartman at Wake Forest. You watch them on a Netflix special, and then go to college, and then transfer to Notre Dame and play against USC, and against Caleb Williams. You see all these guys. You see, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa both go to Ohio State. Chase Young, Joey Bosa teammates at Ohio State. Then their teammates in the Super Bowl. So you have a little bit more of an affinity, a little bit more of a connection with college football players because football is king, and that transfers over to the NFL. So I think all that NFL is great talk is unnecessary. We're locked in. We're locked in from high school to the pros.
Yeah, whereas the NBA, they're still trying to figure out who the Thompson twins are. Where did Cam Whitmore come from? Because not only did he only go to college for 1 year, he missed a lot of that season with injury. So now that we're looking at this, we talked about it.
Isn't on TV.
You brought it up briefly. You brought it up briefly. Minnesota, OKC, near the top of the West. So we see teams like Cleveland in the East right behind Milwaukee and Boston. So team-wise, we're witnessing a change of the guard. But from a player standpoint, is the guard changing? Because Denon, that's my son. LeBron is still the talk of the town, the talk of the NBA. Any NBA show that you watch, you can't escape it. So at this point, Jason Tatum is in the hot seat of y'all better win the championship this year. So are we at a place where the old guys are fading away and the young guys are taking it by the crown, or is it just the old guys fading away?
What I think we're going to end up getting is that eventually, like, they're just going to have to do their retirement tours. LeBron's probably going to do his next year, maybe in 2 years.
Hopefully next year.
That depends on how when Bronny gets to the league, because I doubt that he would want Bronny's first year to be kind of overshadowed by his simultaneous swan song retirement tour. But if he's healthy enough to play a couple more years, a lot of Tom Brady, who won a Super Bowl at like 43, 44, then you keep going. Eventually Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors gonna have to retire number 30 in the Raptors, and he's got to do his tour. And these guys will come around, and we talked about it. Like, yeah, Tatum's on the hot seat because of his, ironically, because of his past successes that people have kind of equated to failure. Like being on a team that they've had a lot of turnover. Yeah, keep in mind he was on a team with Kyrie for a while.
They're on their third coach since he's been in
Third
the league.
coach since he's been there. One coach got fired and moved up into the building, so that should have been like some tension. They bring another guy in. That guy gets into the NBA Finals. Then that coach is allegedly having sex with one of the owner's wives. More turmoil. They bring in another guy who's not as
Polished.
Polished or schematically like locked in, and they make a run at it again. Eastern Conference Finals.
Almost came back from 0-3.
Almost came back from down 0-3. So it's like you have all this turmoil, and him and Jaylen Brown just kept trudging along, winning and winning and winning. They just ran up against some other guys that they ran up against these other old guard guys. LeBron put him out one year. Miami, just a good organization. They put him out. I think
lost to Golden State.
Lost to Golden State. So it's like he's not a bunch of first round losses after they have 55 win seasons. So I think, like I say, he's just kind of a prisoner and kind of low key, for lack better word, being punished for his early success, to include Jaylen Brown. And then with the contract that Jaylen Brown got, and then the success that the team has had. But I think they're going to be able. This year is probably going to be the year that they could potentially win it all. We'll do predictions and stuff like that later. I like Ant-Man because I like his personality. I think he embraces the superstar spotlight.
Here's a quick question.
Showcase his personality, and I think a lot of players don't do that.
Here's a quick question. So obviously, back in the day, you had Magic in LA, you had Larry Bird in Boston. Even though Boston isn't necessarily the biggest market per se, but the Celtics had.
It was a big white market, yeah.
Yeah, and they were the successful team in the league, besides the Lakers. MJ came through, third biggest city in the country, Chicago. So with somebody like Ant-Man in the world that we live in today, is being in Minnesota a detriment to him?
No.
Or is it just he's good enough that he'll get the required attention if he earns it?
I don't think the market impacts the viewers' opportunity to see them. It may impact your personal bank account and your personal endeavors. For instance, if you want to do a lot of commercials, you're probably not a block or Uber or a Sprinter ride away from a studio like the guys in LA or the players who play in New York. You're probably not that close to agents who can connect you with TV execs and get you, spots in TV shows. That might impact you. But as far as like the viewer of the sport of basketball, you can see it because we can see it everywhere. We can see it. I literally have an iPad up right now.
But are they going to get the attention? Because we saw Denver win the title, and it literally
Denver doesn't have any personality.
It literally turned into, is LeBron about to retire?
Yeah, but pick a guy on Denver that you want to hang out with. I would
chill with Aaron Gordon.
You would chill with Aaron Gordon. You probably smoke a cigar, sip some whiskey in a quiet room wearing like a smoker's jacket. You're not partying with him. Like Ant looks like a guy that he looks like he's having a lot of fun on the floor. Mm-hmm. He's shown. Ja Morant's in Memphis. We followed Ja Morant all last season. Granted, it was for negative reasons, but we literally followed him. They talked about him all the time. So I don't think the market, as far as like the viewer, we can see it. Like I said, the only thing that really impacts is your personal opportunities, your personal banking opportunities. Like Eli Manning playing all those years as a New York Giant, it just made it easy
So,
because it's a little bit more global with that city. But I don't think it's hurting Ant. I think the only thing that's really hurting him is that we want we want to continue to highlight the heroes, and we only talk about Steph. We only talk about Katie. We only talk about LeBron. I mean, we talk about our group chat. Anytime I look down and there's 59 messages, and I had just checked it, because I was at work the other day, though we were eating went out to lunch. I checked it, put my phone down, ordered the food, looked up at the TV, had a conversation, looked down, it was 60 messages. Looked back up, 70 messages. Looked back up. It got to 99 and stopped. Like it didn't go higher than that, but there's still people, it would just keep flashing 99. So it was 99 messages. And I'm like, this has to be a LeBron conversation. Because that drives our talking needle. But if you think about the other shows, the shows on TV, they talk about Denver a lot. Those guys don't have like the great marketable personalities. Like I said, I don't think the city location and the confines of the country holds it back. I just think like a lot of guys just don't have that marketability.
Okay, that's fair. So I was looking at it and I was trying to figure this out because, back when Jordan was running around, Magic and Bird were doing their thing. We had this next guy in the chamber. He came up and lived up to the expectation. But even with Jordan, you had your David Robinsons, your Elijah Wands, Clyde Drexlers, even to a lesser degree, you had like Run TMC, you had, Isaiah Thomas running around. Then LeBron came along, you still had Melo, Dwayne Wade, you had another gang of players that were coming with them. So when I look around the league now, the league is deeper as far as talent. We talked about the evolution a little while ago about how players, this player is that player, so on and so forth. So you got what? You got, Giannis is, I believe, going to hit 30 either this year or early next year. You got Jason Tatum, who's still 26, 27-ish.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Luka's pretty young. You got Anthony Edwards in SGA. But I don't know if, like, the league is so deep, I don't know if there's that standout quality in the same way because there's so many good players. So as the guard is changing, is it basically Tatum and Luka until further notice?
Nah, I don't think so. I think that because I think the exposure, like for Jordan was a world icon out of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been another player from the city of Chicago that would consider themselves a world icon? I don't think so. I think it's just him as an individual player. I think he just resonated with people. Be like Mike. So if you have all these players and Dominique, like I said, the league was like growing then. Now that the league is like so global, I think these guys are good brands. I think the connection to fashion, and that's a big deal. A lot of these guys are really in the fashion scene, so that kind of branches them out. You'll see a lot of guys at Fashion Week in New York, or they'll be in Paris, or like the walking up the tunnel. So I think that connects people to the team.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like we think about the legends that we've had through basketball, and we're comparing like these guys in their early stages of their careers to the legendary status that these other guys have already ascended to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Larry Bird, like we've probably been seeing it all over social media that Draymond Green hit more threes than Larry Bird. But when Larry Bird was shooting those threes, everyone felt iconic. Like the 3-point contest when he shot and let the ball go and put his finger in the air.
Or when he kept the jacket on.
Kept the jacket on, had his finger in the air. Draymond doesn't have that moment. Granted, he has 650, he has more threes than him. but Larry Bird has that iconic moment. Same thing with like a guy like Reggie Miller.
But he also
Reggie
has
Miller
like a
only
little
averaged
bit
like
more
19
attempts
points.
too.
Reggie Miller only averaged like 19 points for his career, but the choke symbol to Spike in the Garden. Granted, he never won a championship. Those things are just iconic. So that's what we think about now. These young guys are going to get their opportunity. They just got to just stay the course, and teams have to stay the course. Teams can't panic. Don't fire your coach if you don't win a championship. Everybody can't win the championship.
Don't listen to him, Boston.
Until you get to the point where maybe you need a change. I didn't say everybody has to apply that, but like everyone can't just be like, oh, we didn't win, we got to fire a coach. That's not a problem everybody has. Ooh, this game looks sloppy. So
Virginia and Boston College going into overtime, by the way. You know, Virginia, that's in the last 4 ends. So if Boston College could get them out of here, that gets Kareem Abdul-Jabbar a little bit closer. But I was thinking about it the other day because, you know, as we look at this, I don't see, and I know, Mike, I know Denver doesn't have a bench, you know, but I don't see anybody in the West at this moment that I would pick in a series over Denver. I do think that OKC would give them the biggest trouble from a matchup standpoint, but they don't have the experience. You know, and especially if they finish 1-2, they wouldn't even play until the Western Conference Finals. So they've played 4 times this season. OKC is 3-1 against Denver. But to do that, SGA had to have a 40-point game one time. And there was a game where he scored 11 points in the last 6 minutes. You know, but when Denver was whole and had all of their players, they had a 30-point lead on OKC. So there's that. You know, Dallas Mike thinks it's the Mavericks that has the best chance to beat Denver. I get the thought behind it. You know, I can see where you're going with it, but
I don't see it.
I don't know. I don't know if I trust Jason Kidd enough to.
I don't see it because I don't see the guy that impacts Jokic to the point where he has to switch up what he does. I think Jokic can simply walk into any game against Dallas and go 28, 11, and 11.
And see, and where I think
OKC, like, I don't think there anyone that defends him. I don't know if the guy he's like, what guy is he going to have to guard that's going to make him work?
Well, that's what I was going to say. When they play OKC, Jamal Murray just cannot defend SGA. And you can't necessarily put him on Jalen Williams because Jalen Williams is just going to abuse him physically. But then you pull Jokic out because Holmgren can play on the perimeter. So
but can Holmgren guard Jokic? Can he?
No, he don't got to. I'm talking about the other side of the ball.
I'm
just saying, like, yeah. He's going to pull Jokic away from the rebounding position. You know, a lot of times, if that's, you know, you can set up your game plan to where you keep Holmgren more, you know, on the perimeter. And
but does he get 2 fouls in the first quarter trying to guard Jokic in the post?
That could happen. That very well could happen.
That's the cheat code. That's the cheat code because I think Luka's gonna get people involved, but I think it might be one of those situations like we talked about it before. Let Luka do his thing and let everybody else stand around and watch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love Kyrie.
I mean, that's the game plan for Jokic too, but he just doesn't play along. You know,
like Jokic's gonna press you.
We talk about certain players like CP3.
Jokic's gonna get you in foul trouble.
Yeah, we talk about people like CP3, LeBron, Steve Nash when he was still playing. We want to see these guys score 30 points because they're not getting everybody else involved. And Miami tried that for a game, and it worked to some degree against Jokic in the finals.
Yeah,
you know, where he only had
like three or four assists. Yeah.
So that's the way to do it. But Jokic just doesn't necessarily take the bait.
But he didn't do it for the entire series. Like
Right.
he adjusted. Like, okay, let me go back to 27 points, 11 and 11. Let me get to the paint based off these guys are going to be able to shoot, but if they're not knocking down threes,
my problem is that you got a guy like Aaron Gordon who is like your Swiss Army knife on defense. You can put him on anybody pretty much, and he can hold it down. Gafford's obviously doing his thing right now. With I haven't watched their game tonight or if they played tonight. I know he's getting close to breaking Wilt's record.
I'm watching tonight, but it's on mute, so I don't know if he did break that record. But they're down 8 right now. I do like the Gafford pickup. 75, but no Luka's playing.
I do like the Gafford pickup. I do like the PJ Washington pickup, but like you were talking about earlier, the whole chemistry part of it. As good as Dallas, as talented as Dallas is, with PJ Washington and Gafford, do they have that chemistry when we're talking about a playoff series? And that's my question about them.
Yeah, you gotta play them. You gotta play a lot of games. They're gonna figure it out. And ultimately, it's like, I don't think Dallas has anyone defensively that can stop Jamal Murray if he wants to go for 30.
So I think
Aaron Gordon just plays. Aaron Gordon just does everything he needs. He has great chemistry with Jokic. He literally went to Serbia and hung out with him and raced his horses for like vacation last summer after they won a championship. And he just always seems to be in position where he's looking for Aaron for the lob. Because if you can get 12, 14, 16 points out of him that aren't expected, now you got to adjust to that. So now you got Jamal Murray.
I will say, I don't like the fact that they don't have Bruce Brown this year. I think that if Denver does lose, that's going to be part of the reason why. But also for your Kyrie comment, they do still have KCP as well. So they have someone that can harass them, and they can outscore Denver, but Denver can get stops as well as much as they can score.
Dallas can't send. I don't think there's a player that Dallas can send out defensively when it's time to get a stop. I don't think they have that play on the roster that they can put on either Jamal Murray or Jokic in the game is 109 or 104 and you got to get a stop. And then Jokic just comes down and gets a layup and one.
Or Porter Jr. gets hot. Like who's going to guard Porter Jr. if he gets hot? So I mean,
and these guys are like it's
and as far as the bench, man, like it matters. I do think that I am concerned about Denver's bench somewhat, but also in the playoffs, your rotation shortens too.
You got 8 dudes running.
Yeah, so I don't know if it could bite them for a game or two. You know what I mean? But I don't know if it's going to bite them. I don't know if it's going to bite them to where
it won't bite them 4 times. Yeah, that's the thing. Best out of 5?
Yeah, best out of 5, you're talking.
Best out of 5.
Best out of 7, I don't think so.
Yeah, getting 4 times.
But as far as so like, okay, so like Boston, let's say they finish this off. They win the title this year. So I guess that puts Tatum as like the new leader of the NBA for the time being, because he's the one that's going to be on top. At what point as good as SGA is, as good as we think Anthony Edwards is and will be, do we think they can be good enough to put together back-to-back championships, 3-peats, things of that level? Because I do think that Denver is good enough to do that right now. I think that if Boston wins, they're good enough to do that with the roster that they have. The only problem with Boston is they've been in the Eastern Conference Finals or the finals all of like the last 7 years. So you would figure eventually that snaps, hopefully not literally on one of their players, but that's going to snap at some point.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I don't know if that's the case. If we're in a fist fight and every time we fight, I get the best of you. It might not always be I'm knocking you out, but I'm like every time you come to fight me, I walk away victorious. You can't be like, hey man, at some point it's to stop because there's no evidence to support that it's just gonna stop. Like you can just keep fighting me and
Well,
keep
we have evidence over the course of NBA history that teams just don't generally do this. Like like you have your teams like the Pistons who made, I think it was like 5 Eastern Conference Finals in a row. They lost to Boston a couple times, beat the Bulls a couple times, lost to the Bulls, and then they didn't come back. We had LeBron do
but
individually.
When Detroit lost to that Cavaliers team 06-07, they disbanded the team after that. So they had a long run. But like, yeah, it does fade, but they were older. They weren't, and they were basically the same team. It was Tayshaun, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, Rip. It just was the same group of guys that got older every year. The Boston run started with a couple of 21-year-old Tatum. I think Tatum was like 20 when he got drafted. 20,
Yeah, and by
21
the
year old.
time they're 31, 32, they might start developing Kawhi knees.
Yeah, but like that's a long time from even now. That's still 4 seasons after this one.
Right.
So
but they gotta win though, because if they don't win, they're probably gonna panic and trade somebody.
Their win differential this year is like they're winning games by average 11 points. They've had 3 games where they won
50-point wins.
50-point wins this year. I watched the game tonight. They went like 26 for 50 from 3. So, and everyone shoots it confidently from Hauser to Williams to Pritchard to Al Horford. It seems like that chemistry does matter because that extra pass and then extra pass and then maybe the cut to the lane instead of shooting the 3. That's the difference between, a team like Dallas is kind of like makeshift and kind of put together and you kind of hope it works. Because essentially this Kyrie, Luka, they didn't play many games together last year. And I'm not seeing much evidence to show that it's really working, the two of them together. I think
they're
it's
like
functioning
the 8 seed right now,
That's what I'm saying. Like I think it's functioning, but I don't know. I don't when it was Kyrie and LeBron, you knew that it worked because the other team focused on LeBron and Kyrie just was so dynamic when he got the ball in his hand. You got Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. You know that it works because they do 2 totally different things, but they can be equally as dominant doing 2 different things. It's like a guy that hits a lot of home runs and a guy that bunts and gets on base, but they both score runs. That guy bunts, he steals second. You get a single, he scores, or the guy, Aaron Judge, hits the home run.
Right now, PJ Washington's 1 for 8. Dante Exum's 2 for 8. They get run out the building. That happens against Dallas. Against Denver.
I'm watching, like I said, I'm watching the game right now. They're battling the OKC. The score is 86-84, but nothing about it looks fluid. It doesn't look like
a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it just doesn't look like, hey, I know you're supposed to be here.
It looks like a collection of good basketball players. It doesn't always look like a team.
Yeah, because right now on the floor, you got Dante Exum with Kyrie, and they're running like pick and roll, and everyone's falling. Like it just does not look like a game, like a well-oiled game. And OKC is kind of falling to that same trap too. But they're at home. The role players are hitting threes. Like the Mavs probably on paper look like they are built for it, but like watching them, like I said, and then Luka, he kind of sometimes he can dribble the air out of the ball.
Well, if the playoffs started today, talking about the play-in and whatnot, Dallas would be playing Phoenix right now. Granted, we got to see what's going on with Devin Booker because you told me that he went down earlier.
No, he stepped on a foot, but his ankle didn't roll. He just was complaining the rest. But
they would play Phoenix right now, and then the Lakers and Warriors would play in the other play-in game. But Sacramento's still right there. They're only a half a game ahead of Phoenix. So, it could get interesting. it definitely could get interesting. Virginia pulls out the win over Boston College, so now it looks like I gotta watch Villanova and Marquette because they might go to overtime. The madness is here, but I think that as far as the guard goes, we were talking about players that were in that proverbial hot seat. So Jason Tatum in the hot seat now. Let's just say he wins the title this year. I would think that Luka's next in the chamber. But he doesn't typically get that type of criticism. Um, but then after Luka, I don't know what's next. Like I don't know who that next, because Luka may not get the title. First of all, you know what I mean. So by then, maybe SGA or Anthony Edwards is ready.
Yeah,
But
and to Mike's point, like he said, Dallas is being built for the series. You got me? Okay.
yeah, I
These
muted
other
my remote.
okay. I was like, so Dallas is a team that's kind of put together, and this year they're figuring it out. And if you look at it, it's like there's a possibility that the guys that are on the floor right now won't be on the team next year. Whereas you look at OKC, they look like, okay, this is a young team. Depends on contract situations. We'll probably bring a lot of these guys back because they look like valued pieces. Same thing with Denver. They lost guys because when you win a championship, there's always going to be a team that comes through and they overpay for one of your free agents. And rightfully so. You got to take advantage of that. I don't see. I look at like the Lakers. The Lakers look like a team that's like they should be deep, and they have two all world players in LeBron and AD. But when you look at it on the floor, everyone keeps talking about Darvin Ham and his rotations. Well, the rotations would look all right if when he put them out there, they performed. If you put Reeves, D'Lo, Rui, AD, and LeBron out there, and they're efficient, they're shooting 50, 55% from the floor. They're
Mm-hmm.
making good passes. They're not turning the ball over. They're not getting 8-0 runs put on them. Okay, then it looks like a great rotation. But if you're
Somebody
not
can knock down
performing,
a 3-point shot consistently.
somebody can knock down a 3-point shot consistently. Like that's the thing is like it all looks like they're built for one thing, but it's more it's more perception than reality. The reality of it is that they are not, and it's fine. You can have a superstar player and not have a great team around them. Dallas is an example of that. They have a superstar player, and Kyrie's obviously a star, but he is not the centerpiece superstar of the Mavericks. And what the team they have built around Luca, I don't think is built for a long run,
It's
especially
hard.
on
It's hard
beating
for me
them.
to believe in them with Jason Kidd as their coach. Like that's part of what it boils down to me. Is that like I don't know if it's philosophy, but something just that team shouldn't be the 8 seed. Like I don't care. I mean, I know they're all close in the standings and everything, but they should be a lot closer to 4 than they are to 10.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's the thing is like it's because it's you need chemistry. You need these pieces to fit together, and you need a year where you go 40-42, like OKC did, or like whatever 39-43 last year.
mhm.
You need like Dallas last year. You were pissed off at them because they had a chance to potentially make the play-in. It's like I don't know how you go like they're having consistently inconsistent years. I don't know how you have that for all last season, all of this season, and then come April,
I'm not
May.
doing this, Mike. But yeah, but yeah, so and that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about real quick before we get out of here. I was on Cups in the Gang earlier, the hot box and everything, and we were having the conversation because I don't understand, I don't understand why we as fans do these things where a lot of us complain about who's the new star. Like, LeBron's old, Steph is old, KD's old, and he's a cupcake. Like, like at some point we need to see the next person on the horizon. Some people thought it would be Zion. This is his first year being healthy. Ja is out for the year again, or as far as like for real this time, not because of his own doing.
Correct.
Um, you know, so who's that next star? You see Jason Tatum. Maybe he wins the MVP this year. He's not my pick, but maybe he wins the MVP this year, and that starts his revolution, if you will. But we get on the NBA for not featuring teams, not featuring new players outside of the norm. And then, like, we got people like Tyrese Halliburton, who was getting a little bit of shine. And then now people are denigrating him. And it's kind of like, well, we can't have it both ways. It can't be they're not producing stars, but then when they try, we're going to be like, nah, not him, though. Like,
Yeah.
try somebody else.
You just gotta. I think we have to let it play out. We were spoiled because from you had the stars of the '80s, and then you had the early '90s players. So they give me your like Shaq. So that was your star in that window. Shaq, Grant Hill, a lot of great college basketball. Christian Laettner, Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky. So it was great college basketball in that early part of the '90s. And then you had the '96 draft, AI, Kobe, Steve Nash, Ray Allen. Those guys carried the torch. And then you had the dynastic runs of the Bulls through that whole period of time. So you had new blood coming in. You had the dynasty of the Bulls running concurrently with this new blood coming in. And then dynasty's over for the Bulls. Lakers ramp up their dynasty with this new guy, Kobe, with the fro. So now they go three. They get their three-peat. And then
Then
draft
they
comes
shared it
2000.
with the Spurs.
Then you sprinkle the Spurs in there, Tim Duncan, and then you got the 2003 draft, and those guys carried it for a long time. And then it just kept going up until about Kyrie's draft was at
2011.
2011. And I think it's been guys who had drafted between 2008 or 2003 and 2011. Those have been our stars ever since then. Steph, LeBron, uh, Melo, Wade, all these other guys, Bosh. They were the guys going to the Olympics. Then you sprinkle in some of the guys that were from the '90s that would carry over, KG, Paul Pierce. So it just hasn't been a lot of guys post 2012 that's hoisted the trophy. That's also been, this iconic team. So I mean, you had KD, but KD was with, uh, like KD was with Steph when he got his rings. So just now these guys are gonna eventually have to retire. Tatum's gonna have his opportunity this year because I think they have the best team to potentially put themselves in a position to win a championship. Jokic has an opportunity to win 3 MVPs and 2 Finals MVPs, so that's at least another face. Granted, Dirk was never really a face of the league, but his Dallas teams were always something to be reckoned with. Even though as a foreign player, they don't really get to that title, that mythical title of face of the league. But when he was hitting that 1 foot step back, and everyone's trying it.
Well, I think Giannis had an opportunity. He got the championship, but I know a lot of people put the asterisk by it because Kevin Durant's shoe was too big and Kyrie was hurt and all this kind of stuff. But they came through. They were down 2-0 in the finals. They came back and won, and they haven't made it back. So was it a flash in the pan? I mean, no. That's not me saying that. That's not me saying that. Yeah. I'm just saying that I think that's the way that some people view it.
Because I think because what we had, like I said, keep in mind the NBA from 1980 to 2000, it was like a handful of teams winning all the championships. Spurs, you sprinkle in the Sixers, Lakers, Celtics got a couple, the Bulls got 6, Houston got a couple. So that 20-year window, it was like 4 or 5 teams winning it all. and that those teams had the most famous players, the world famous players on those teams. So we're just getting to the point where it's like that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
Like so we had the run with Cleveland and
Golden
Golden
State.
State going
Uh-huh.
back to back to back all those years, and it was like, okay, this is getting kind of old. So now we're getting to where it should look like. It should look like teams making moves and making to the finals. Like Phoenix got Chris Paul and went to the finals. No one would have picked Phoenix to go to the finals with Chris Paul. But you
Mhm.
make these moves and then it just works out. You get an injury here, rolled ankle, hamstring, whatever the case may be. Like you get there and it's like that's what the league should look like. It shouldn't be the same two teams going to the finals every single year in a salary cap league with trades and free agency. It
Right.
has to be more than two good teams. I think we're just in that mode where it's like we have more than two good teams. Let's just hope it all plays out to where all the good teams make their good runs and all the good young stars transition to that era that we had before with Anthony Edwards, SGA, Jokic, and Luca battling out west. And then De'Aaron Fox like, hold on, we just got this rookie out of there's no parity in sports.
I mean, there's always parity, at least at the very least
The championship
in
round.
baseball. You know, baseball has a little bit of parity. Like, I mean, who saw the Diamondbacks coming through to make the World Series last year?
The Kansas
Um,
City Royals won
even the
a
Randy
World
Johnson
Series.
year with the Diamondbacks. You know, Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling.
Beating the
Because
Yankees.
baseball, you know, it comes down to the pitching in the postseason. So, like, whoever's got the hot arm usually is
But
a factor.
baseball has a real philosophy on generating parity. The NBA tries to do it with the lottery picks and the how many balls you get in the top 14 and everything else. They try same thing in NFL draft. They let you if you're the worst team, you get to pick the best player, you get to pick first. So there's parity. It's just sometimes if you don't keep the quality pieces in place, GM, head coach, quarterback, whoever your capologist is, like these quality pieces in place, then your team falls apart and you got to start over. Just so happens that Cincinnati got the first overall pick, got Joe Burrow. He was a fifth. He had a fifth round grade the year before. Next year they come out to get Joe Burrow. He gets injured. Following year, people are like, oh, you should get Panay Sewell to protect him. Nah, we getting Jamar Chase. You have to make the moves to make your team better. It's not going to just fall into your lap. And I think a lot of times people think it's just like, oh, boom, I'm gonna get this one guy and that's gonna be it. Like, no, you gotta make
That's
the
what
move,
sounds like.
the
That's what the
third move,
Bears
the second move. But
think.
the Bears, but look what the Bears did. They signed a running back. They traded for
They
Keenan
did all the
Allen.
things that they could have did for Justin Fields.
Maybe they still are gonna keep him, but
Maybe
even
they're
with
still going
that,
to keep him.
or maybe even if you move Justin Fields, maybe you don't move him for a pick. Maybe you move him for another player. Maybe you move him for a couple of players. Like, listen, we don't want your second round or your third round draft pick. We want your tackle. We want we want this defensive player. We want these two pieces, or we want a fourth round pick in this guy.
See what we
You know,
just did, and after all that,
we still talk about the
we
NFL.
came back to football. You know, football is king. You know, it is what it is. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is Mr. Logical. I am 2-5. Thanks for the support. Thanks for joining us. Like, subscribe, review. Tell Granny we said hey, and tell her to drop a subscribe too. You know, man, we'll be back on Monday. You know, we'll have brackets. You know what I'm saying? So be ready because I'm going to be filling out my bracket. And if you remember last year, I was the one still standing in the Elite Eight when a lot of y'all were sitting out in the first round. So
Oh yeah, mine was stuck.
shout out to Princeton. You know what I'm saying?
I
you
could have
know,
printed my bracket on toilet paper.
you know what I'm saying? But yes, we love you, America. We will be back. You know what I'm saying? Look out for us. Cups in the Gang, aka the Hot Box. You know, the Pursuit of Forever with our guy El Residente. Sports Reports is ordered. Biggest movement since Dipset. Out. Peace.